So recently, we've seen a huge amount of hype in the cryptocurrency space, especially with NFTs. Projects like CryptoPunks, Ape Yacht Club, Sandbox, and tons of others are becoming very popular, and we're seeing NFTs sell in auctions for millions of dollars worth of Ethereum. So what are NFTs and how do they work? Well, NFTs are designed to be treated as digital assets and/or collector items that have some value or provide some privileges or rights to their owners. Owning NFTs may give you access to attend an event, it may give you the right to a piece of real estate, or it might just be something you decide to use to launder money like traditional art. Anyways, the reality is that the use cases of NFTs are just starting to be discovered, and it's likely that they're not going anywhere. So now let me dive into how NFTs hosted on Ethereum actually work. Well, first of all, an NFT is simply a non-fungible token. This essentially means that every NFT is unique in some way, and it's not interchangeable with other NFTs of the same type. So this is in contrast to a fungible token, which is identical to all other tokens, meaning each token has the same value and the same properties. Now, the way NFTs are created is from a smart contract that is hosted on Ethereum. A smart contract is simply a piece of code that's running on the blockchain, and if this contract adheres to a certain protocol, then it becomes an NFT contract, allowing it to distribute and create new NFTs. Now, this protocol is known as the ER721 protocol, and it defines the functions that a smart contract must implement to represent an NFT. Now, just like the ERC721 protocol, there's also an ERC20 protocol, and this is used for your fungible tokens. So any token that you might buy that's hosted on Ethereum is likely going to adhere to the ERC20 protocol. If you're buying an NFT, it's likely going to be the ERC721. So continuing, ERC721 contracts are responsible for creating and allocating NFTs, and the way they do this is they associate specific Ethereum accounts, so your Ethereum wallet address, with the unique IDs of NFTs that are created. Now, every NFT has a unique ID, and in simple terms, if your address is linked with that ID in the code of that smart contract, then you own the NFT. Now let me go onto the computer and I'll start showing you all of this in action and actually exploring the blockchain. Alright, so in front of me I have a random NFT that is hosted on OpenSea for auction. We can see right now it's listed for about $250,000 US, and this is the 7,248th NFT from the Ape Yacht Club collection. This is what the graphic looks like for the NFT. I don't really care about any of that. What I want to do is show you this on the blockchain. So from OpenSea, what I can do is just go to the most recent transfer of this NFT. It's saying that some account send the NFT to the current owner, which is BoardDK. So I'm going to click on this here, and what I'm looking for is the actual NFT token itself. So I can see the transaction action right here, which is saying there was a transfer of the Ape Yacht Club token from this address to this address, and this is one token with the ID of 7,248. So I'm just going to click directly on this ID here, and it's going to show me this token on the blockchain. Okay, so we have the token ID, 7,248. We have all of the transfers that have occurred. And this first transfer here would have actually been the NFT being created and then sent to a specific account or having a specific account own it, whatever. Now, what I want to look at is the contract. The contract is actually what represents this NFT and allows us to transfer it and is why this NFT exists. So if I click on this contract right here, we can see this is the Ape Yacht Club contract, right? This is the official contract, and we can view all of the stuff that's happened in this contract. So the reason why there's going to be so much or so many transactions here, is because every single time we want to transfer an NFT from one person to another, we need to interact with the smart contract that created that NFT, because the smart contract defines who owns what NFT, and so we need to call a .transfer method or something on the contract so that we change the ownership of the NFT from one person to another. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but that's the basics. Anyways, I can click on the contract tab here, and you can see that we can view all of the data of the contract and actually read the code itself. Now, this contract is quite long. It's about 1,800 lines, but if I scroll all the way down here, we should be able to actually read the contract that represents our Ape Yacht Club. So let's go down here. Let's continue. And we should see a contract right here. Okay, so contract Ape Yacht Club is an ER721 coin. Notice that. Let me zoom in a bit here so we can read this. And then what we can do is actually view all of the different functions and properties of the contract. So this is completely transparent. We can see all of this. So the starting price of an ape, I guess, is 0.08 ETH. We have the max ape purchase, so I guess only one person can have up to 20 apes. We have the maximum number of apes and a bunch of other stuff. We then have a constructor. This will be called when the contract is actually deployed. You don't have to worry about all of the code, but the point is that we can go in here and we can read this and we can start looking at actually how apes are created and what's going on directly in the contract. So when I go here, notice we have function mint ape. This takes in the number of tokens, and what it's going to do is require a bunch of things are true. And then what it will do is actually create a new ape for us, and it will associate that ape with whoever actually called this smart contract. Now, I'm sure this is very confusing to a lot of you if you haven't looked at blockchain, but the whole concept here is that we can look directly at the contract and we can kind of see how this works, how apes were created, and everything that's going on. Now, one thing we can also do is we can read data directly from the contract. So notice we have all of these, I guess, properties or functions that we can call. And if I do something like go to the owner of, I can put in my 7,248. That's the ID of the token I'm talking about. And it's going to tell me the address of the person that owns it. So now if I click on this address here, I can go and I can view their inventory and I can look for, it looks like they have a lot of stuff, their Bored Ape Yacht Club. So now down here, I'm viewing the address of the person who owns this 7,248 Bored Ape Yacht Club token. What I can do is click on inventory and I can see all of the tokens that they own. So right, I can go here and then I can go back and view 7,248. Anyways, the point of me showing all of this to you is that you can view everything on the blockchain completely transparently, and what we just did is go to OpenSea. We viewed that we had a coin on OpenSea that was for auction. In this case, it's an NFT, right? This was the 7,248 Bored Ape Yacht Club token. We then went and viewed the most recent transaction with it, clicked into that token, viewed the contract that actually created that token, and then we interacted with the contract, saw who actually owned the token, then went and viewed their inventory and saw that they had another token as well. All right, so I'm now back on OpenSea and we are almost finished. The last thing I want to show you is how we actually deal with the images of the NFTs or the music or the background or whatever is making up the NFT. Anyways, we have number 7,248. We have obviously metadata associated with this. Now to view the metadata, you can scroll down if you're on OpenSea and you can click on metadata. Now notice that we can actually view all of this data. It's not hidden, it's not private, we can see it all, and we can see where the image is hosted, the attributes, and all of this stuff. Now this data, the metadata of the NFT, is going to be hosted off of the blockchain in some location. And the way that we're going to associate an NFT with its metadata is we're actually going to add something to the smart contract that links the unique ID of our NFT with some URL of where the metadata is stored. Now, the reason why this data will be secure is because we're going to store a hash of this data on the blockchain, which means that if we ever modify this data right here that represents that NFT, the blockchain will know, and there'll be some problems. We actually won't even be able to modify. Anyways, I hope that makes a little bit of sense, but I'm just trying to show you that the data of our NFT is literally in a JSON file like this. It's stored somewhere on the internet that anyone can access and that you can go and view. And the reason we can't modify it is because we store a hash of this on the blockchain or in the smart contract, and so we know if someone tampers with that data. Anyways, with that said, I am going to end the video here. I hope this gave you some insight into NFTs. If you guys are interested in learning more about cryptocurrency technology, then definitely subscribe to this channel because we're going to have all sorts of tutorials in the future. Last thing, if you are looking to become a programmer or become a software engineer, check out my course, programmingexpert.io/Tim. Use the code Tim for a discount on the platform, and I will see you guys in another YouTube video.